Hi and welcome back to Bikespeeds. So this week's a little bit different. Unfortunately, we can't film in the shop this week. Something's happening this week, so we're unable to film. So we just thought we'd bring you a Q&A. So we threw it to the floor and asked you all on the various social medias to ask us a question. And actually, we were inundated. It's always a surprise to me when the channel's growing the way it is. And we had so many questions from you guys. So thanks very much. Unfortunately, we cannot do all of them. There was just too many. So we've sort of drawn them down to some were sort of asking a similar question to others. So we're, maybe have picked one of those. But anyway, here we go. This is what we've come up with. So I hope you enjoy this. There's a few questions for you. And the first one is, what's the hardest bike project you've ever worked on? Well, that actually was pretty easy for me. I came up with this answer pretty quickly. I like actual project bikes. I do a few of those for myself, and I built a Retro Direct. If you Google Retro Direct, you'll see it's a bike where you pedal forwards for one gear and you pedal backwards for a second gear. But they usually have a chain tensioner on them, which I didn't want. So I did it with a crossover chain pattern, and I used bearings and rollers to put the tension onto the chain, so it was a really neat finish, and you almost didn't know what was happening unless you knew what was going on with that bike. And that actually was really technically quite involved with figuring out things, welding parts to the frame to get that to do what I wanted it to do. And that by far is my most tricky project to date. Next one up is, have you found the business has increased since being on YouTube? Well, yes, without a doubt it has increased. But more poignantly, it's given customers the confidence to use me. Customers who maybe were unsure, in our local area, it's quite a competitive area for bike shops. There's some good mechanics in our area. To stand out from those and to make people really believe in you and come in and see you, without a doubt, the YouTube is the absolute crowning glory of our efforts to encourage customers to use us. So yeah, YouTube has certainly increased our business. And thanks for watching and all the rest of it. So that's been great. Right, do you clean your microfiber towels in any specific manner, or just bung them all in whatever the wife uses with the clothes? Well, actually, we have a rolling program with our microfiber towels. Always on paintwork and final finish, we use a brand new one. Without fail, we don't want to scratch a bike or do any damage to the paintwork, so they're always done with new ones. Then as they get dusty, from the second usage, we'll then use that to wipe down mechanical parts. Then that becomes dirtier, so then they're used for the degreasing of parts. They then get really grimy and greasy, and at that point we either wash them and they go to stage 2 of the wiping down of mechanical parts, or we bin them. So we are going through a lot of microfiber towels, and we buy them in bulk, and yeah, although we do wash some, it's probably fewer than you would expect, but we have a rolling program, so they are actually used for quite a length of time really. So surprising with those how you can keep those going. Right, next one up is, as a bike mechanic, what is your favorite brand of shifters to use? Well, I love Di2 without a doubt. Electronic shifters, they're a joy to work on and they're a joy to ride on. So without a doubt for me, it's got to be an electronic shifter for absolute sure. Are sonic cleaners worth their weight in gold? I put degreaser in an old energy powder container, fling my chain in and shake vigorously. Now, I am a great believer in there's no perfect way to do any task. There's always more ways than one to do a task. So if you're putting your chain in a container and shaking it, that is brilliant because it works for you and achieves the same result of degreasing your chain, getting it clean. I am an absolute believer that my ultrasonic cleaner is worth its weight in gold. I wouldn't be without one, because if I'm in my shop shaking a chain in a container, that's not going to look professional. It's going to achieve the same result, but it isn't going to look professional from me professionally. So yes, it's worth its weight in gold, but that doesn't mean you've got to go out and buy one. That technique described there is absolutely perfect, so fair play. What's some bike shop etiquette you wish your customers knew? When I read that question, I actually had a chuckle, because I'm not a negative person. I accept whatever comes along and whatever happens. But the one thing that I always wish my customers knew was, you don't have to go online to buy parts, because you might think you're buying them cheaper online, but then you're paying postage that I'm paying my wholesalers for, but in bulk. So that's spread between many items in a delivery. But also, if you buy a part and bring it into me, there's two things that are negative to doing that. One is you've got to pay me labour to fit it. I actually only charge recommended retail price on any part I fit, and I fit it for free. If you're buying a derailleur, I'm not going to charge you to fit that if you bought it from me, but if you bring one in a box, I am. And the second is, I can warranty my work if I've supplied the parts. If you've supplied them and then a part fails, you've then got to come back to me, pay me to take it off, send it back and pay the postage to send it back, to sort out that problem. But anyway, that's just the one etiquette thing that I often notice, and it's not really an etiquette, it's just something that always makes me chuckle. Is it actually possible to set up cantilever brakes? I am convinced it is simply not doable. Well, actually it is doable, but the key with those in terms of servicing is to make sure everything is precise and as it should be. So you want new cables, new bridges, new bridge cables, new pads, lubricate the pivot points. You need to do the entire system, not just try and set it up at the brake end. And to get it nice, you do need fresh. So that's my answer to that one. Currently restoring a vintage bike after being inspired by your videos. Well, that is awesome. Thank you. Unfortunately, the grips have gone brittle and broken up. Where do you source vintage retro parts or modern replicas? Thanks lads, love the videos. Well, I'm glad you love the videos. I'm glad we're inspiring you out there. What I would say to that is, it is basically on the socials. It's eBay, Facebook Marketplace, but there are one or two gems around. Things like Brick Lane Bikes in London, they have a retro parts section on their website and they get some cracking parts in there. So there's sources like those. Facebook groups, forums, all those things. You need to sort of research the bike that you're restoring and then, you know, work with the medias that are out there to find the parts you need. And sometimes, you know, it can take months to find the part you need, but it's worth that wait. You know, I think with restorations, you don't want a time scale. You don't want to have to be producing that restoration in a month or two. You want to have it as a rolling restoration so that you can find the right parts for you and your bike. Right, next one up is actually a YouTube based one. How many gigabytes of footage does a bike service use up? I'd have to ask Simon that, and he's actually not in the room. He's gone out while I'm doing this. But what I would say is it typically takes us 2 to 3 days to film a bike. That's in amongst doing other work in the shop. So we'll spend do a block section and usually work Saturday afternoons, Sundays to get these videos to you. And then it takes Simon 2 to 3 days to edit them and get them loaded up onto YouTube. So for him, it's actually a full-time job to get one video out to you. So that 10-15 minute video is a full week's work. I'm not sure how many gigabytes, but it's certainly very time consuming. Have you the chance to work on a world tour cycling team? If not, would you? PS, every Wednesday night is booked for your new videos. Greetings from Peru. Well, one thing I am astonished with YouTube is the various countries and areas and even languages that we're reaching. It's just, when I see that from Peru and we're in the UK and we're in a little tiny town in, on the east of the UK and we're reaching out that far, it's something that really astounds me. But back to the question, no, I have never worked on a world tour team. Would I? Absolutely. Who wouldn't as a mechanic? I mean, I am shop based, so I don't know how that would work. I'd obviously have to close the shop, so it would have to be worth my while, but equally, wouldn't that be a dream? Who wouldn't really, let's be honest, if you're a mechanic. Is Bikespeeds a traditional bike shop in which you sell bikes, etc., or is it a business, more a workshop? Also, Lee, how did you get into the trade? Well, we actually have a small shop. We were based around a different trade. I was down on my luck, but I've always been into cycling and always built bikes. And I cleaned up one of my race bikes, a TT bike I had. A friend of mine came in and I cleaned his up as well. And the two bikes were stood there looking lovely. And a lady came into the shop from my old business and said, I see you do bike repairs, how much do you charge for punctures? And that was how we turned into the bike trade and changed the business name and the model and everything of our business. We're very much workshop based. When we decided to go into bikes, I sort of weighed up the market locally more than nationally and so on. And so I decided that my abilities lied mechanically and not in retail, and I didn't have a massive shop for lots of bikes. So we do sell bikes, but we decided specifically to go into maintenance. Have you found the quality of new bikes in question since the shortage from manufacturers? The higher end bikes, mid to high end, the quality hasn't changed throughout the shortages. But what I have noticed is the low end, and I'm literally talking 100, 200, 300, 400 pound bikes, they're getting a lot more cheaper, less quality parts, and those, without a doubt, the quality isn't quite where it was 2 years ago. As parts go more expensive and they're still trying to build to their price points, that's not really working, and the lower end is not brilliant, but the high end hasn't changed at all. Your manufacturers are still producing top quality bikes. How often do you recommend a bike gets serviced? How many miles between servicing for a road-ridden commuter and a trashed mountain bike? This is a question I get asked a lot in the shop, and I always say to my customers, get your bike serviced when something's wrong with it. So if the gears are starting to not change, the brakes aren't feeling quite right, got a little bit playing a bearing or a noise you suddenly hear, that's a good point to get your bike serviced. So it doesn't matter how many miles you do or even what terrain you're using your bike on. We clean them differently, we service them differently. Different riders have different weights, they're putting different torque through the pedals, so the wear is different. We are all individually different on the way we ride and use our bikes. So I always say, get your bike serviced when something needs doing, and that's a good point to get it done. You know, there are people who will get bike serviced with me almost monthly because they're just so fanatical and they want their bike right. That's fair enough. There's other people who ride them into the ground. When something breaks, they bring them in and I go right through the bike and sort it out. What kind of brand of bikes do you guys ride, roadies or MTB? Christmas Eve of 2020, I actually had a crash on a road bike and I hit something in the road which shot me off the bike and I hit a wall and I broke my shoulder. And actually at that point I was training to do Land's End to John O'Groats, which if you're not in the UK, is the very lower tip of the UK to the very top tip of the UK. And unfortunately I had the accident and that put pay to that event, but also actually put pay to my cycling. At that time I was doing triathlons and TT racing and road biking, which is mainly where my area has always been. And after that I actually sold my road bikes, I sold my TT bikes, I sold, you know, all my various bikes. And I'm actually now riding, of all things, I'm riding hybrid bikes. And the rally that we did in the video a couple of weeks ago is actually for myself, and I've been riding that up and down to work and enjoying it. But I'm having trouble with my position of my arms and the shoulder and everything to ride a road bike. So I've actually pretty much retired from racing because of that accident. And I'm just enjoying commuting hybrid riding. So that's where we're at the moment. We're on the old hybrids. Simon's still on a road bike, but I'm not riding really seriously anymore. I've really had to wind that down, which is ironic when you think of the YouTube and the shop and what I do. This is now going to Instagram questions. The others were from YouTube. What is your pet peeve when working on a bicycle? Well, actually, I don't have any pet peeves. I just love working on bikes. There's nothing that peeves me off. I just enjoy it all. I just get on with it. There's no pet peeve for me, that's for sure. Is it hard being absolute legends? Do you know, the most taxing thing with YouTube is actually that it's very mentally draining. Doing the videos every week, finding the bikes, getting everything in place to film them, filming them, editing, talking about it, trying to grow it. It's mentally very, very tiring and it's intense. You know, working father-son together, it's intense. I'd love to think we are absolute legends. It's nice of you to say that. Yeah, who knows, maybe one day. Do you want to do a tutorial vid, like setting gears, etc.? Would appreciate. Well, actually, when we set up the YouTube, again, as when we set up the bike, we're always looking to be unique in our space and different in our space. And we actually deliberately went for what we call infotainment. So we give a little bit of information in an entertaining way. And that's what we're hoping we're achieving with the YouTube, to be an information entertainment channel. YouTube is awash with how-to videos. And, you know, even the amateur ones to the professional ones, they're very, very well made and very, very educational. You learn what you need to learn from those videos. That was never what we were about. At the moment, we're not looking to do how-to or tutorial videos. When do you open a second shop in Berlin, Germany? I mean, I've always been a one-man band shop. I've been in my shop for 33 years. Wouldn't that be the dream to walk to, you know, get your ticket on Eurostar over to Germany and visit the German branch at Berlin? That would be awesome. So maybe one day. Would you ever do a giveaway? Well, we have done a giveaway, but what you have to remember is we are a very small channel and we are growing, and there's just not enough money in YouTube. There's not enough money in YouTube to go for big giveaways and big events. And yeah, we'll come up with another new idea for that, I'm sure, at some point. Carbon or aluminium cranks for a race road bike? Well, with components, it's about what you're doing and about where you are. Some people love, you know, all singing, all dancing for the enjoyment of ownership. Other people love all singing, all dancing to improve their race times or their TT times or their mountain bike efforts, you know, whichever direction their riding is. There's no right or wrong to that, and there's no right or wrong component for any one person. Yeah, I can't really answer that one. What is the best way to build community and reputation as a mechanic? Well, I always think reputation is built on honesty. I never try and pull the wool over someone's eyes. I always try to be as honest as possible. We all have problems. I try to sort those out as efficiently and as quickly as possible. I think your reputation as a mechanic is built on your honesty. Building the community around what you do is all down to spotting a niche, a uniqueness, something, you know, I didn't just want to do a weekly ride. That wasn't for me. We're now doing the YouTube, which is a way of building our community. because people are coming in all the time talking about it. And yeah, that's great. Tell us about your watch collection. Well, you all know I love my watches, but my collection is actually not as big or vast or as expensive as I think some people think. I have got a few watches. I've got about 5 or 6 watches that I love, but they're all, none of them are high end. They're all entry level of various brands and certain things about. I love unusual watches, so I've got a Boulevard Aquatron, which is around the space race of the 60s, and it's from the year that I was born, 69, and I love that watch and the stories behind those watches. And I'm not going to be a watch YouTuber, I put it like that. Is there ever a time you have to decline a repair because of scarce parts, resources, etc.? Absolutely. I'm a shop and I'm a realist. Yes, that happens. But the biggest decline of work actually is the cost involved. Everyone has their perceived cost of what something's going to cost them. Some parts are extremely scarce, and that's going to inflate the price of the parts. And so often it's down to costing as to decline of work. So that was the last question I've got for you today. So thanks for watching. Thanks for asking all those questions. We do appreciate it. We've got a giant that we'll be filming hopefully for next week, providing again we sort of have to source parts and organise it and everything else. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That's really important for YouTubers because it gives us a measure of our achievements and where we're going with that. Once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.